Welcome back to Rewind of the Living Dead. I'm Damon Martin.
And have you read Sutter Cane?
Do you
I'm
read
Patrick
Sutter
Guerra.
Cane? Patrick, yes, tonight, and by the way, before we even start the podcast, I want to say we are full spoilers tonight. This movie is over 20 years old, so no non-spoiler section for our podcast
We're at
today.
30 years old for
30
this
years old,
movie.
yeah. God, how old are we? Jesus Christ. Yes, we tonight, try to, have we, outside of Halloween, have we? Oh, we did the fog. We did do the fog. Okay. I
We
was
did
trying
the
to think what other
thing.
Carpenter. Yeah, we did the thing. Okay, we have done more Carpenter.
Oh yeah.
I think it's pretty well documented. John Carpenter is my favorite horror director. So we are diving into another of his films, a 1990s John Carpenter film. Probably best known for his work in the 80s, but in the 1990s, of course, we're doing tonight In the Mouth of Madness.
In the Mouth of Madness, released in February of 1995, dead in the center of the 90s, folks, starring the likes of Wilhelm von Homburg as Simon, Frances Bay as Mrs. Pickman, Charlton Heston as Jackson Harglow, Peter Jason as Mr. Paul, Bernie Casey as Robinson, John Glover as Saperstein, David Warner as Dr. Wren, Jurgen Prochnow as Sutter Cane, Julie Carmen as Linda Stiles, and starring Sam Neill as John Trent. As you mentioned in our intro, Damon, written by Michael DeLuca, directed by the great and legendary John Carpenter, with a budget of $8 million and a worldwide gross of $8.9 million. Not exactly a barn burner, but then again, John Carpenter, while a genius and perhaps the grumpiest director of all time, not always a box office smash, but it doesn't matter, Damon, does it really? Because when it comes to John Carpenter, it's all about the execution. It's all about these movies that just stand the test of time. And I'm going to be real with you, Damon. I had never seen In the Mouth of Madness before you suggested it for the podcast. I had seen pieces of it. I realized I had pieced together like images of it and stuff from like flipping channels on Cinemax back in the 90s, but I had never truly seen it, Damon. And now I can see it. Now I cannot unsee it, Damon, because this is something of a specialty for John Carpenter. This is cosmic horror. This is In the Mouth of Madness.
It is John Carpenter, I would argue to say John Carpenter's weirdest movie. And I just recently watched the In Search of Darkness 1995 to 1999 documentary. Shout out to what an incredible documentary that is. I know we had the director on for the last one for the 1990 through 1994. If you haven't checked it out, it is so worth your time. It is such a great documentary. 6.5 hours talking about 90s horror. But in that, the newest one, they do talk about In the Mouth of Madness. And John Carpenter is interviewed in the documentary, and he said that he kind of unknowingly created an apocalyptic trilogy, starting with The Thing and then going into Prince of Darkness, which, for those of you who don't know, Prince of Darkness is my favorite John Carpenter movie. I adore that movie. We'll probably get around to reviewing it one of these days. And In the Mouth of Madness was the final one. Now, remember, these are all stretched out over many years. The Thing came out in the early 80s. Prince of Darkness was, I think, 87, 88. And then, of course, this came out in 95. But he didn't realize, like, he had kind of unknowingly created an apocalyptic trilogy where all these films are dealing with the end of the world. And I would argue, I know everyone, and I'm not saying I don't love Halloween. Like, everyone knows John Carpenter, and they say, oh, Halloween. I get it. And that is his most prolific film. It is his best known film. And it is the film that just changed horror forever. But it's nowhere close to being my favorite John Carpenter film. And I think this apocalyptic trilogy, if I'm being serious, like, these might be his three best films. Like, we love The Thing. That's no. You go back and listen to us fillet that movie from a couple years ago. I just said Prince of Darkness is probably my favorite John Carpenter movie, and then In the Mouth of Madness, it's so utterly batshit, but in all the best ways possible. And it's just like, this is, what this reminds me of, Patrick? It's like when we talk about Maximum Overdrive and we joke about how Stephen King openly talks about how he was just completely torqued out of his mind on cocaine making that movie. I'm not saying that John Carpenter was doing cocaine, but I feel like there was like, you know what? Have you ever done acid and directed a movie? Let me do that and try to see how that goes.
Yeah, Damon. What I loved and what jumped out about this movie to me right away was how unapologetically 90s it was. It's people in like, silver and gray suits with the big shoulder pads and the big hair. It's right outside of the 80s, and it's sort of corporate drama. Like the lead guy is an insurance investigator. There's nothing more 90s than that. It's like what, an insurance investigator? Like that's what we were doing in the 90s. And I feel like this movie is a full-throated 90s movie. Like it just, if you it's a time capsule. If you pluck 1995 out of the air, it looks like In the Mouth of Madness. It's the quality of the film grain, it's the lighting styles, everything about it. Like it to me, it doesn't feel like a John Carpenter movie. Every John Carpenter movie I know moves in a certain way and plays with the images in a certain way. And this one doesn't move like that. It moves completely differently. But John Carpenter, as I mentioned earlier, a bit of a cosmic horror fiend. If you don't listen to our intro, Damon mentioned he loves H.P. Lovecraft, and it is a whole thing. And by the way, our part-time producer, Real Dumb, is doing a cosmic horror series on his TikTok right now. So if you follow him on TikTok and get his breakdown of all his favorite cosmic horror films, this counts among cosmic horror. The idea that something from a dimension beyond this, a place beyond this, can drive you to utter insanity. That's intriguing. That's exciting. There's dread. There's the idea that the world is coming to an end because of whatever is reaching out from beyond the abyss. It's coming here to take us in gruesome fashion. In the Mouth of Madness insists on doing that in the most 1995 way possible. You get in your Cadillac DeVille and you drive out into the middle of nowhere and you get into some shit, Damon. And that's exactly what In the Mouth of Madness is.
I know you're not a big book reader, but have you read any H.P. Lovecraft stuff? Have you ever seen like
Not HP. I read a lot of Poe, which I think tracks for me. It's a little more dorky.
I think I've read like one H.P. Lovecraft book, and I learned when the show Lovecraft Country came out. If you remember that show a couple
Good
years ago,
show.
which is a tremendous show. H.P. Lovecraft was kind of a piece of shit.
Yeah.
Like
Not a good guy.
not a good guy. And so I know, like I always say, sometimes you got to separate the art from the artist. And it is hard when, like we talked about years ago, we did The Burning and we learned that Harvey Weinstein wrote that wrote that movie. We're like, what the fuck? But listen, the reality is, we've reviewed movies that star Kevin Spacey. And I said, listen, I'm not going to deny that Kevin Spacey is an incredible actor. He's seemingly a pretty terrible person, but he's a great actor. So sometimes it's hard to separate the art from the artist, and H.P. Lovecraft is a great example of that because, as I learned watching that show, he's not a good dude. But I'm not a big H.P. Lovecraft guy, and I'll be honest, I'm not really into the weird, ooky monsters out of nowhere cosmic horror stuff. Like when you mentioned our boy Real Dumb is doing this series and rating cosmic horror films, I noticed I had seen a lot of the movies he's reviewing, but to me, like, if you were trying to pin me down saying, are you a cosmic horror fan? I would say no. Generally speaking, I'm not. That's just not my jam. And I know, the weirdest movies I dip into are David Lynch films, which is the weirdest of the weird, but that's literally the only thing I get into. And I think part of that, not lying, part of it comes down to how much I love Twin Peaks and, that just kind of got me in tune with David Lynch. And, if it was anybody else making those movies, I might watch the same thing and be like, this is terrible, but I just love David Lynch. But generally speaking, I'm not a cosmic horror guy. Like, I've seen a bunch, but like I realize like I'm just not a huge cosmic horror guy. But this movie, what I love about In the Mouth of Madness is it dips its toe clearly into that cosmic horror. I mean, it is cosmic horror, I mean, if you can't see the H.P. Lovecraft influence in this movie, you don't know H.P. Lovecraft. Like, I don't even know. I think I've read one book by H.P. Lovecraft or maybe some short stories. And even just the name alone, I was like, oh yeah, this is influenced by H.P. Lovecraft. I knew it without even having to do any research. Because if you talk about like the weird Ookie monsters and the Call of Cthulhu, all these kind of things, like you just know it's H.P. Lovecraft. But there's just something that speaks to me so deeply about In the Mouth of Madness because it dips its toes so deep into the world of the weird. And you talk
Yeah.
about like a horror author named Sutter Cane whose stories are like coming true and people are going mad reading his books. And then you go to the town of Hobbs and there's all these weird ooky shit happening there. And then you got the black church and it's infecting the children. It's just, I don't know. It's like the right balance of weird that works for me But I'm telling you, like, if this was another director or they had taken the story in a different direction, like, there's a version of this movie where I'd be like, oh, it's just too fucking weird. Like, it doesn't make any sense and it doesn't really. Because the reality is, and I know we'll get into this as we get deeper in the podcast, Patrick, and really get into the story, like, the ending of this film, like, doesn't, I mean, it gives you an ending, but it doesn't really give you an ending. Like, there's no definitive, like, you know how it goes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, the ending is literally the guy going into a movie theater, watching himself on screen, like it's some kind of weird, 4D experience or something of him, like, living his own life. And it's bizarre. Like, it's truly bizarre. And the only, like, the overarching theme, I guess, is that what happens when the rest of the world goes mad and you're the one sane person, like that kind of thing. Like, they're not, they don't really tell you, like, they say things are getting bad out here. They never say what's actually happening. And when the movie ends, it's just a very ubiquitous, like, he's going to the movies and he realizes the world's turned to shit. But they don't really tell you, like, what's going on. So this is not, like, when the thing ends, I'm going to spoil that movie from 1983 or whatever.
Oh no.
When the thing ends, and I just literally just saw Ryan Coogler talking about this the other day because he was talking about how she loves the thing. Everyone knows, is Childs the thing at the end of the movie? When Childs and McCready are sitting there at the end of the movie, they blowed up the hangar, and everyone's like, is he the thing or not? And John Carpenter said, there is an answer, but I'm not going to tell you. And Ryan Coogler said he talked to Keith David, and Keith David said he doesn't know the answer. So he's like, I've always curious, like, is Childs the thing or not? So that's like the biggest hanging thread of that movie. But that is almost like a conversation starter. You don't really want to know in a way. Like, I want to know, but I don't want to know because I like having that question of, like, is he or is he not the thing? Prince of Darkness kind of ends on a bit of a weird note too, if you've ever seen that movie. But I think the way Into Mouth of Madness ends and the way this movie plays out, like, they don't really give you answers. You're just left up to your own imagination of what's going on in the world. And there's something kind of poetic about that with this movie because it just leans into exactly what this movie is, which is weird. It's a weird movie.
What I think is so interesting about cosmic horror and movies like In the Mouth of Madness is that a prerequisite is that in the end, everyone goes mad. In the end, it is chaos. In the end, it is hopeless and bleak. And the unknown is the thing to fear. The thing beyond whatever we are left with is to fear. What is to come? Existential dread. The idea that I'll never know if I'm crazy or if this thing got me. I'll never know if McCready handed me a glass of scotch because he's the thing, or he was just handing me a glass of scotch and now am I the thing? Was I always the thing? Have I forgotten that I don't know. I don't know. You go into a state of absolute mania. And that is a big prerequisite with cosmic horror and In the Mouth of Madness. But that also might be why it's not the most popular genre out there, because you are supposed to be left asking questions. You're supposed to be left going, well, what's next? What's next is infinite doom, infinite darkness, infinite madness. These are the things that are like things that exist on a scale you can't understand. The idea of infinity we can understand. We can kind of quantify it a little bit, but we really can't wrap our brains around forever. We really can't wrap our brains around madness. And to me, that is a perfect, an absolutely perfect recipe for dread. Dread is I won't call In the Mouth of Madness the scariest movie I've ever seen, but it's unmistakably a horror movie. But I will say the dread of the movie is never quite knowing. And Damon, let's get into why, because I think this is one of the more interesting and genius ways in, props to, it's Brian DeLuca, the writer, right?
Michael DeLuca.
Props,
Michael DeLuca.
Michael DeLuca, excuse me. Props to him for finding his way into this, because Damon, and I'm gonna turn it over to the resident writer. The way they get into madness here, I absolutely love.
So the way this movie opens right away sets you on like a weird path in this movie because we open in an insane asylum and a guy named, we don't even know his name at the beginning, but it's Sam Neill's character, John Trent, is getting admitted into an insane asylum, and he's basically pleading for them not to put him in a padded cell. And he kicks a dude in the balls, and they drag him in and chuck him in there, and he's like trying to get out. But even then, the weird shit starts right away. Like he starts hearing voices. They play the Carpenters, which is kind of funny, and then he's getting haunted by this vision in his cell, and someone crashes through the window, and he's like in a straitjacket, and you're like, what? Oh, this dude's like out of his mind. What's going on here? And then this guy shows up from the government. We never learn like where he's from, who he is, but he shows up and he's going to interview John Trent, and he let him into his cell, and they put a table down. And by this time, he's been in there for a few hours. And he's like, did he make any requests? And he said he asked for one black crayon. And so he's covered his entire cell in crosses, his face is in crosses. Like he's trying to protect himself with religion now. And he sits down, and this investigator, played by Warner, what's his name? Oh God, why am I not thinking his name? Jeez, where's his name here? David Warner, very famous character actor.
David Warner plays Dr. Wren.
Sadly passed away a few years ago. Was in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2: The Secret of the Ooze as well. Also Scream 2, another David Warner appearance. He shows up and he starts asking him like, what led him to this, and then that's where we get the flashback of John Trent as an insurance investigator working for the great Bernie Casey, another character actor who has sadly passed away. Most people probably know him from Revenge of the Nerds. He's an insurance investigator for Bernie Casey, and he busts a dude. Peter Jason actually plays the guy he busts at the beginning of the movie, who's a guy, if you've ever seen any John Carpenter movie, you know Peter Jason, who also sadly passed away. God, I'm just like killing off this entire cast here. Peter Jason is a guy who has literally popped up in like every John Carpenter movie in like some weird small role. And this time he's a guy who's like, committing insurance fraud. And John Trent busts him. And afterwards, Bernie Casey's character is like, dude, I want you to come work for me full time. And he's like, no, I don't work for anyone full time. I like, no one pulls my strings. He's like, well, I got one more case I need you to work for me. It's this missing author, this horror author named Sutter Cane. He's a huge author. He's gone missing. And if he goes missing and I have to pay out this policy, it's going to, he doesn't say it's going to bankrupt us, but it's going to, it's a huge payout. He's like, all right. And so they're sitting in this like diner, they're sitting in this restaurant talking about it. And then out of the corner of your eyes, this weird guy coming out of the building across the street, and everyone's kind of running from him, and you see he's carrying an axe. This might be my favorite scene in this whole movie, Patrick, because it's just so perfectly horror, perfectly John Carpenter. They're talking, totally oblivious to what's going on around them. We hear people outside screaming and running, and this guy's got kind of blood on his face, carrying a fucking axe. Climbs up to the window where they're sitting, and he smashes through. Bernie Casey's reaction is great. He falls to the ground screaming like, ah! And John Trent is like shocked, and he goes, do you read Sutter Cane? And you see he's got double eyeballs, like weird alien double eyeballs. And he's like, huh? And he reaches up to crash the axe down upon Sam Neill, and then cops shoot him dead. It's such a great intro to like the madness of this movie, because they tell you like right away when you first hear about Sutter Cane, you realize he's this widely read, hugely popular author whose books allegedly affect the readers. They affect you in some way. They don't come out and say like you become a lunatic, but they kind of make you mentally unstable. And that guy coming across the street, crashing through with the axe and basically trying to kill John Trent, which, as you find out throughout the story, he's trying to stop this from happening, basically. He gets shot and killed, and then as the investigation starts, he's like, when he goes to the publisher's office to start his investigation into Sutter Cane, the publisher, who is played by Charlton Heston, also dead, Jesus Christ, Charlton Heston's like, he only dealt with his agent, and he's like, oh, well, where's his agent at? He's like, well, you saw him die. And he's like, what are you talking about? He's like, I heard you were there when the poor man went nuts and crashed through a window with an axe. He's like, that was his agent? And like, it just sets the tone so perfectly for the bizarre shit that's about to unfold for the next hour and a half. It's literally a 90-minute movie. But it's just such a great setup. That scene in the cafe or wherever they're at having coffee, talking, and that agent crashes through with the axe. That's my favorite scene in the whole movie. I love that scene.
It's so insane, and it also felt very John Carpenter, which it was this great scene of them sitting at the table talking, and just in the background, out of focus, deep in the background is the agent charging his way towards the glass door, and you're like, look at that. fucking hell's coming right for you, pal. Do you fucking see it or not? And then here he comes with that axe wielding. And what I loved, and this felt John Carpenter to me, was cutting in real close on those eyes and seeing the double pupil and just knowing whatever's happening there is fucked up, and here we fucking go. Can't wait to see how this plays out. Can't wait to see how this lays out. He takes the assignment, and they assign to him the editor of all of Sutter Cane's books, a woman by the name of Linda Stiles, Damon, in the white power suit with the big hair, very sultry, very 1995. I mean, unmistakably 90s. And there's immediately an attraction between the two of them. It's because everything in the 90s was hornier than a fucking cactus in the Arizona desert, Damon. I mean, like, and so they
But
set out.
and you know what I love? I got to mention this. I know you know. I was just going to say this. You know what I love about John Carpenter is like he doesn't. His male leads are never like they're never Brad Pitt. Like they're never that guy. Like,
No.
it's like Sam. I'm not saying Sam Neill's not a good looking dude, but I'm saying like you don't look at Sam Neill and be like, oh my god, what a fucking. He's like liquid sex. You know what I mean?
Right. Oh no. Well, Damon, let's be real though. The 80s and 90s were, and the 70s for the most part, were full of like, let's just say, more homely and natural looking dudes at the front of movies, landing women that they were punching way above their weight class. That's just a commonality. And only now have the scales started to even out. But what I loved when they decided, all right, let's set out to go find Sutter Cane. His theory is, because he's a very analytical mind, is he goes this town, Hobbs End, right? It's Hobbs End.
Yep.
He goes, there's this town, Hobbs End. It exists, and I think it exists in this little framework right here up in New Hampshire. And they're like, that's not a fucking town. There's no Hobbs End. It's fictional. He's like, he goes, I'm going to point us to Hobbs End because I figure everything out, and that's actually very important to the character. John Trent is a skeptic. He will always be a skeptic, but he can see between the lines. That's his strength. So he will stay skeptical. He does not believe there is any supernatural bullshit going on. He's going, someone's trying to defraud us for millions of dollars for that payout. That's what they're trying to do. I'll get to the bottom of that. That's my big thing. That's my big contribution to all this shit. So they take this drive out to the country, him and Styles. And here's what I loved, and this is again, John Carpenter, I think, is a great, really, really, really good director. I love this use of the country road to represent madness. They're driving for what feels like hours, and he's like, I think we're lost. And she's like, no shit, there's no fucking place called Hobbs Inn. Of course we're lost in the cornfields in fucking New Hampshire. We're trying to find a place that doesn't exist. Night falls, and that road, and it's just yellow lines going at the screen, and it's got that low camera angle, and just the car's headlights shining on the yellow light, blackness beyond it. It's very cosmic, actually. It's very much like being sucked into some sort of, like wormhole deep in space, like something about it. And it's simple, Damon. There's no insane special effects or compositing or optical trickery. It's just a headlight and a road, and the madness begins right then and there. And that portion of the movie struck me so hard because I was like, this feels like it's been a half an hour long. Like something about the road felt like it was so long. It wasn't. It was maybe a 10-minute segment. But Carpenter was able to take you into the mind of those going mad, and it also kind of reminded me of a Dream Master, Nightmare on Elm Street, where the repeating started to happen, and you're like, wait, am I fucked up or is the movie fucked up? Like, what's going on here exactly? I love that portion of the movie because that is really that idea of the road, that darkened road that they are lost on, is them falling into the abyss. I just fucking loved that part.
And that driving scene, which by the way, can I ask, like, you want to nitpick this movie? Why in the hell does John Trent have a bike horn in his rental car?
Cadillacs have real horns. Yeah, that's a Cadillac DeVille. Why was Seville? Why the hell does it have a little?
It,
bicycle horn in the.
it made me laugh. He leans over to grab to wake her up because he's obviously getting bored and she's been sleeping. I'm just like, why exactly do you have a bike horn just like hanging out in your car? Anyways, they're driving on this road, and at this point, Styles starts driving, and they run across this kid on his bike driving on the road, like pedaling on the road, and then she's like, I think we're lost. And like, she's like, we're lost because there's no place called Hobbs Inn. They're kind of arguing. And then out of nowhere, which by the way, this is one of the best scares in the movie, good jump scare. And it's not my favorite, so I can say it now, is when that fucking kid comes out of nowhere and she hits him with the car. Holy shit, it's a good scare bomb. I'm like, what the fuck? Good jolt. And they go and they're, John runs and grabs a blanket to bring over and, to try to help the kid. And genuinely, because they have like an old man mask on the kid, and like it's pretty creepy because you see him earlier and it's just like a normal kid, and you see him again, he's got this weird like white hair, old and everything, and he's laying on the ground twitching, and he's like, he won't let me out, I can't get out. And you're like, what the fuck is going on here? And then he just gets up on his bike and rides away, and you're like, what in the shit is going on here? And then they get back in the car, and Styles starts driving again, and then like you hear thunder, and she looks out the window, and there's no ground beneath them, and she sees the lightning strikes, and you can see they're like literally in the air. And then a second later, they're on like a bridge, and they cross over the bridge, and they go from daytime to nighttime in a split second. And she stops the car, and Styles is obviously scared out of her mind, and she looks over, and there's a giant sign that says "Welcome to Hobbs End." And John wakes up, he's like, "Oh, Styles, you found it." So he didn't experience any of this weird shit.
No.
Only Styles did. And you're just like, that whole scene is a perfect setup for like, what am I witnessing right now? Because you're obviously seeing everything through both characters' eyes. Like you saw it through John Trent's eyes when he's driving. Now you're seeing it through Styles' eyes when she's driving. All the weird shit is happening to her. And John doesn't see any of this except for hitting the kid. And he's just like, oh, it was all right. The kids are getting like, no, never mind the fact the kid went fucking flying over the car. And he's just like, he was okay? But okay, sure, let's just move on with that. But they show up in Hobbs End, and at this point, Styles is pretty clearly rattled. She's like, what in the fuck? And John is convinced this entire time this is a big publicity stunt. Like he finds the map for Hobbs End in these like little red outlines on all of Sutter Cane's books because Sutter Cane personally approved the artwork. And when he does a little cutout trick, which by the way, for a plot device, what a brilliant plot device. Like what a great idea to have like the covers of the book all connect like a little puzzle, and there's a red dot on one of the books, and that's where he figures out where Hobbs End is. I love that plot point. It's not something stupid like he looks at it and he's like, oh, I figured it out. There's these red lines on every book, does a cutout and realizes it's New Hampshire. Love that. But John is once again, he's like, this is all publicity stunt. Like, Sutter Cane's going to pop out and people are going to find Hobbs End and they're going to get like a tote bag for a reward. This is all a big publicity stunt. So at this point in the movie, John still hasn't experienced any of this, but Styles is already kind of dipping into the madness because of that car ride. And what you're talking about, that highway and the kid and then showing up in a town that she knows doesn't exist because she later admits in the movie, yes, this was supposed to be a publicity stunt. But there is no Hobbs End. There was never going to be a Hobbs End. We have no idea how the fuck this happened.
I also love that it takes so long in this movie for Sam Neill to ever acknowledge that anything's going wrong. And believe me, things get weird. I mean, people have like weird changing faces. Like the church from the books is there. Like it's there in perfect description, and it doesn't really make sense. Lots of odd shit. We talk about Mrs. Pickman. Mrs. Pickman is strange. She's also from the books, which he does know. He knows that. Mrs. Pickman, okay, yeah, the one who chops up her husband or whatever. Bullshit. Like you can't convince this guy that any of this is real. And when I tell you shit hits the fan after a while, there's one point where Mrs. Pickman turns into a goddamn, like she looks almost like the Thing. Like she looks like this insane like cosmic beast. He sees like the weird fish beast in the solarium, and he's still like, it's all bullshit. I don't believe any of this shit. And he oscillates between that and going insane. Like he's losing grip on reality, but his skeptical mind will never let him accept it. It really gets him so deep into this world. And Styles's theory is that Sutter Cane's writings are manifesting an actual place, that where they are is some crazy portal that comes to life when his words are written. And the weirdest thing and the hardest thing to like wrap my head around, Damon, and maybe you can help me with this, is the actual introduction of Sutter Cane. When they go to the church, that's where he resides. I get that. But like he sort of like pops in and out of existence, or what is he doing? Is he's writing in the church? The church is like, is it some sort of like sacred portal to that interdimensional place where those beings, which is what Sutter Kane claims, the beings are in his brain telling him what to write and telling him how to manifest these things to bring about their coming to earth, to decimate it, to basically just come there and feed on the flesh of the earth and turn it to eternal darkness. But I don't really understand how Sutter Kane exists in the world. Like, how do we make sense of Sutter Kane?
So, from the way I've always took it, and begin, let me just say this, just how I take it. Sutter Cane is the vessel for these creatures because he says, like at one point towards the end of the movie, when John goes to the church and finally confronts Sutter Cane, or he ends up in the church and finally confronts Sutter Cane, he says, "I've held them back as long as I can." And I think what he's saying is that like his writing has allowed him to give them a conduit into this world, and by writing his stories, he's slowly but surely infecting the world with these creatures, these ideas that this is actually happening, and it kind of makes reality. Because to be honest, like in a movie like this, like I'm 100% John Trent. Like I'm a skeptic by nature. That's how I am. Like just as a person, and it would take a lot. Like I just like anything else. Like it, yeah, it would take a lot to convince me that this is all real because he's convinced throughout the entire movie that this is all a big publicity stunt. Like, oh, Mrs. Pickman's real, sure she's real. Hobbs End is real, sure. Like he's just thinking they're all trying to pull the wool over his eyes. And he says at one point, he's like, "You want me to go back and tell the world that Sutter Cane is this, deadly mad prophet of the written page," I think is what they call him at one point. And he's like, "You want me to tell the world that this guy's fucking real and all his stories are real, and you want me to sell your book? I'm not doing that. Like, I know this is all horse shit." And so my take of Sutter Cane is that he is ultimately a vessel of these creatures. They have anointed him their, I don't know, their Christ, their holy chosen one to century their emergence on earth. And his writing is allowing him to do this like slowly but surely. Like, as long as he keeps writing, they'll stay at bay until he properly infects the world, and then at some point they're going to burst through that door and take over. And that's kind of what he says towards the end when he's just like, "I can't hold them back any longer. You need to go, because once they come through this door, we're all fucked." And so my understanding is that Sutter Cane is he was the first person infected, or and he had that contact with them, and now he's their vessel to bring them through to this world. That's my theory. I don't know that I'm right. I'm just saying this is a guy who's seen the movie like 30 times.
I mean, it feels right. And it feels very cosmic too, because it's like, well, why do they choose Sutter Kane? Don't ask that question. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They chose him. And now you're in this situation. But unfortunately for John, he is such a skeptic, he will never let go. But because of his skepticism, he keeps missing the signs. And when he finally realizes, he's like, shit, I am in too deep. And then I think really what did it for him was Spider Spider Styles was like, he was like, okay, I guess this place really is fucked up, because she's something about her seems way off. But at that point, it's too late. He's in too deep. And when he has his final confrontation with Kane, Kane says something I really loved, which is like, "You only exist in the world because I write you in here." And so it kind of confirms Styles' theories, which is like, I write, therefore you are. Or I think it's like, I think he said, "I think, therefore you are," which is like he's becoming a god. He's been imbued these godlike powers to create reality. And he's saying to Trent, "You're not real. I say you're real because I wrote you. I put you down." And Trent can't. John Trent can't accept that. He can't accept that. He's one of the smartest insurance investigators on the planet. There's no fucking way. It's impossible. But indeed, Damon, this is the impossible comes true in a cosmic horror. And he finds himself back in the real world miraculously. And the Jackson Harglow, the head of the company, he's like, what fucking editor? What are you talking about? Who's Styles? I never heard of a Styles. Like you brought me this manuscript all this time ago. Like you brought me Sutter Kane's manuscript. That was your job. I sent you that. I sent you on that mission. You came back. Thanks. Congratulations. The book's been out for a while. It's a massive success. And guess what? The movie's coming out in just a few weeks. It's too late. He lost sense of time. He lost sense of reality. This is cosmic shit. Like, I think about like the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, and what I really love about them, we've talked about this ad nauseum with regards to those movies, is when you don't realize you're in the dream. When that magic trick hits just so in a Nightmare on Elm Street movie, it's like a warm, it's a warm sense of like pleasure that washes over you, like, oh, I got tricked into the dream. I love that. I just love that I didn't see the dream coming. You don't see the madness coming here. You're sitting in Trent's perspective the entire time, and he's constantly telling you, I promise you this is all bullshit. I promise you this is just a way to get our money, and it's this guy's a multi-million dollar author. He could do all this stuff. None of this is real. There's no way any of this is real. And denying the madness actually pulled him deeper and deeper and deeper into it, to the point of no return. That's gloom and doom at the highest order.
Well, what I love about the way this movie unravels once they get to Hobbs End is you are getting both positions. You're getting John Trent as a skeptic who doesn't believe any of this shit is real, and you're getting Styles, who has seen the effects of Sutter Kane's work throughout his time, writing as an author, and how it's gotten weirder and weirder, and people are more and more affected by his writing. And she's his editor, so clearly she has a better understanding of him than most people. And you see her like fading deeper and deeper into the ooky shit, into the weird shit, into the cosmic horror. And she's accepting it. Like when they go to that church and that mob shows up, like, trying to get their children back, and Vigo from Ghostbusters 2 is leading the charge, and he goes up, he's like, "Give him back, Kane." And the door opens and Kane's standing there, and then the little boy's like, "Johnny, Johnny boy." And the dogs come, the Dobermans come run around the corner, and they attack, and Styles like, "We got to get out of here." And he's like, "Why?" And he's like, "I know what's going to happen." And even to this point, like I said, Trent is just like, this is all a setup. And even when they get back to the hotel, and she's getting weirder and weirder. And at one point she tries kissing him, and she's like, "He wrote me. He told me I had to do this." And he's just like, this is all bizarre. And like, Mrs. Pickman's weird, but this is not actually happening. And at one point he goes into the bar and he finds that the dad who tried to save his sons, Simon, and he's like, "This is not reality." And he's like, "Reality isn't what it used to be." And he shoots himself, and he's like, this is what he wrote me to do. And like watching him like fight every instinct he has to say there's no way this could be happening. And then as time passes, he can't ignore it. And when he finally gets to Kane's office, and Kane tells him, like, "You're my conduit. You're going to take the book back to the world. I'm done. Like, my role here is done. I've written the book. I've opened the gate. Now it's your turn to deliver my work to the world." And he's like, "Fuck you. I'm not delivering your work to the world." And he's like, "You need to go now. I can't hold him back any longer." And he goes down that long tunnel, and there's wall-to-wall monsters coming out after him. And it's a great scene. He's running, and then he just kind of trips and falls. And when he looks up, it's daytime, and he's in the middle of the road outside of Hobbs End. And he runs into Hayden Christensen on the bike. I don't know if you knew that or not.
No.
Hayden Christensen, that was his first film role. And he's like, "Where am I?" And she's like, "Sir," he's like, "Have you been in an accident?" He's like, "Yeah, I have." He's like, "Where's the highway?" And he's like, "Do you know a place called Hobbs End?" He's like, "No, never heard of it." And he's like, "All right." And he gets back to the highway, gets to his hotel. He's getting back to a sense of reality that he can understand. But then a manuscript shows up, says John Trent, and it's the fucking book again. He already burned it once, now he's got another copy. And he's like, "What the fuck?" And then he gets on a bus to go home. And he falls asleep, and at one point he wakes up, and Sutter Kane's sitting next to him, and he's just like, "Oh my God!" And he's like, "This is getting worse and worse." And he's like, "You want proof?" He's like, "Did I ever tell you my favorite color is blue?" And he wakes up, and the whole bus is blue, and he's like, "Ah!" And by the way, Sam Neill has a great scream. I love his scream in this movie. When he wakes up, he's just like fucking freaking out. And he gets back to town, and like you mentioned, he goes to see Jackson Harglow, and he's just like, "Style, who's this Styles person you keep talking about? Book's already been, you delivered it to me months ago. What are you talking about?" And it's almost like as time passes, I don't even know for sure that John Trent really goes insane, that he really accepts the madness, but it's almost like I can't fight it any longer. I need to lean into it. And that's when he shows up at that store, and the guy's like, he runs that kid, and he's just like, "Bet you didn't know this was going to happen." He fucking axes him, and that's when he gets, taken into custody and put in the insane asylum, because he's trying to, what Trent thinks he's doing is he's acting outside the book. He's acting outside of what Cane is saying he's going to do, because everything that Cane has put into his book has come true, from the town of Hobbs End to the weird church to the children going mad to Styles. He's convinced that, like, he does not want to accept that Cane is writing all this into existence, and so he's trying his best to lean into that idea that I can break the cycle. I don't need to be, I'm not controlled by a fucking writer. This is insane. And so that's why he axes the guy's like, "Bet you didn't see that coming." But once again, this is all part of Sutter Cane's master plan. And when he shows up in the insane asylum, he realizes as that investigator comes to talk to him that this was all in the book. This was all part of a way to spread the madness. This was all a way to spread the cosmic horror of what is coming for our world. And I don't know, you tell me, like, by the end of the, like, do you truly believe that Trent went mad by the end of this movie, or do you feel like he's just accepting, like he's almost accepting that there's no escape from this?
I think it is sort of an acceptance moment when he gets into that movie theater, because Harglow's like, "Hey, yeah, the movie's, now the movie's out." By the time that he's broken out of the asylum, the movie is now released. It's all too late. And when he sits in there and he realizes the movie is everything that he just went through, he realizes he's stuck in this cycle of madness, and laughing maniacally is sort of the sweet release of it all. He's like, "Yeah, I guess we're here. I guess Kane was right all along. Like, we are now in this new universe where, death and destruction are reality, and I brought it here, didn't I? I did it all, didn't I?" Like, it's classic madness, in my opinion. Like, it's just that kind where you wallow in it, you bathe in it. And I feel like that's Sam Neill right there. He's just bathing in the lunacy of it all. But to me, it makes sense. To me, it feels very A, B, C, D. Like it all seems to lay out the right way. It's just you're going, but it couldn't possibly be this insane. Can it? Can it really be this mad? And the answer is absolutely. Absolutely. Your worst fears, your worst nightmares, the worst existential crisis that you could possibly drum up is real, and you're experiencing it, and you'll never escape it. That is just wild to me.
When John escapes the insane asylum, and you never see what's going on, you see the world is kind of looking abandoned out there, streets are empty, but you hear the radio broadcast, and he's like, if you're hearing our voice and you haven't been affected, get to safety, whatever. So shit's gone bad out there. And he goes and he finds this movie theater, and the big marquee says "In the Mouth of Madness" starring John Trent. And he sees the poster, and it looks like him running down that tunnel from all the creatures chasing him. And he goes inside and he grabs a bucket of popcorn and he sits down and he just starts cracking up laughing, because he's kind of accepting the fact that this is reality now. Like, this is the world he's living in. There is no escape from what he's in. And that's literally how the movie ends. You never, you don't know, like, does the world actually devolve into pure madness? Do these creatures actually take over? And that's where I talk about, like, this is not a bookend movie. Like, they don't just give you an answer. Like, you're just seeing, like, basically what you have to accept by the end of this movie is that Sutter Cane and these forces of evil, or this ooky forces of creatures, have actually invaded our world. And him sitting there laughing and watching all of this unravel on the screen is just his acceptance that this is his life now. Like, this is what it is. Like, everything that Styles told him, everything that Sutter Cane told him is true. He's been written into existence. He's been written into this life by an author. So it's like a circle. It comes like full circle.
Yeah, it's a maddening circle.
Or very true detective, time is a flat circle. He comes very much around to that. And him laughing is almost like an acceptance of, like, well, there's no escape now. I'm in it. And I don't know that Trent ever truly fully goes mad, but I do think by the end, him laughing and watching himself on screen is just his acceptance of it all.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is. I think it's basically the tipping point of him going mad, where it's like, yeah, I'm gonna do this forever, aren't I? Like that's what it's looking like. I love that. I just love that it's like there's eternal doom there. It feels right for what this is.
This is the ultimate Patrick Dower ending. Like there is no
Yes.
escape. Like
Yes.
he is trapped here forever. He has been literally written into existence, and he has brought doom to the world, delivered by the pages of Sutter Cane. Like this is the perfect Patrick ending to a movie. Like there is no escape. Doom has settled into your small town, and there's no getting out of it. I love that ending, and it is weird. Like, it is weird. He goes to a movie theater and he's literally watching himself on screen, which sounds really bizarre because it is really bizarre. But it is. Like, you realize by the end that, like, yeah, this is it. Like, this is the apocalypse. Like, this is no escape. Like, everything that Sutter Kane has written about the end of the world and the beast coming into crossover into our existence is real. And it's just all over now. And him just sitting there laughing is almost like you can't. I can't remember what movie it is, but it's like you can't be serious. You just have to kind of laugh at it all. Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
He's kind of accepted what he is, what his role in all this is, and there's no getting out, and it's all over. And that is a Patrick ending to the fucking T.
I fucking love endings like that, Damon. Not to toot my own horn, beep beep, but I mean, my short film, The Path, that's going in festivals right now. There's sort of an implication to that there as well. Like I was actually breaking it down with Real Dumb. We were talking about. I go, is The Path a cosmic horror? And he goes, when I'm looking at all the elements of it, I think it might be because that idea that like you may have to do this forever. This may never escape you. That's fucking dreadful, Damon. Oh, I fucking love that.
Well, if you think about the three movies in John Carpenter's Apocalypse trilogy, I mentioned the thing, like how that ending with like the unknown, did the thing survive, did it not survive? And then to spoil Prince of Darkness, like they think they defeated Satan who was trying to cross over. Like Satan isn't actually like a demon, from the depths of hell. It's actually an alien. And like they're convinced that like it's being reborn here on earth. They've allowed Satan to escape and they think they've defeated it, but at the end of the movie the lead character wakes up and he realizes like maybe they didn't kill it, maybe it's still out there and it's going to cross into our world again. So even that ending is almost like we don't know. Like, did we really win? Like, is it still out there? Did we actually beat this thing, or is it just inevitable that this is going to happen? That the world is going to
Yeah.
end at Satan's hand? Which, like I said, in that movie, Satan is an alien. But yeah, they're like, is this just the end? Like, can we ever escape this? And that's in the Mouth of Madnesses too, which I think there's a purpose to that. And as John Carpenter, I know he said like he didn't go into these movies thinking this is going to be a trilogy of the apocalypse, but he
Sure.
realized like how much he was influenced by the book of Revelations in the Bible, which if you've ever read the book of Revelations, which I have, it's some fucking crazy shit. And it's like, I mean, it's literally apocalyptic. Like they're literally telling the end of the world. And he's like, I read that shit as a kid. Like no wonder
Yeah.
I fucking had this idea that like we're all doomed and fucking, failed and we're all gonna die. So like I love that basically all three movies have a very similar ending of like, yeah, we think we've won or we think we've escaped it, but we really didn't. Like we didn't really win. Like the thing, yeah, McCready kills everyone else and he thinks like, and he blew up the building and like there's no, they're in the middle of the fucking Arctic, so like you're not gonna walk back to town or anything.
Right.
But like, did he actually stop it? We don't know. Prince of Darkness, same kind of thing. Like they think they've won, they've defeated Satan, but did they really? Because when the movie ends, like, you get the indication like they didn't. The thing's still out there. It's going to cross over in our world again. And this one, same thing. John Trent sitting in that movie theater, and he's like, "Yep, we're fucked. Like it's out in the world. We're all infected. It's just a matter of time." I loved that like theme in all these John Carpenter apocalypse movies.
I really wonder if newer generations, and I don't even mean like the kids or whatever. I mean like even young millennials who I think prefer very complete stories can appreciate movies like this, like The Thing. Definitely young millennials, Gen Zers, and even some older Gen Alphas, where you show them this movie and they go, "That's it? Like, is that the end? Like, how can that be the end?" And it's like, well, you have to like You have to be able to sit with the comfort of the unknowing. And I'm like it just I'm just it fails me currently to see a movie like that. I mean, you could say that about Smile, I think maybe. Like Smile sort of does not offer a happy ending. It says this will keep going forever, which curiously enough, um, um, why can't I think of his name right now? Parker Finn.
Oh,
Parker Finn,
yeah,
the
yeah.
director, is about to remake one of the greatest cosmic horrors of all time, which Possession. Possession's a fantastic cosmic horror film, and he's about to remake it. But now I'm seeing it kind of makes sense because Smile says there's no answer. In fact, Smile says things get worse. If you've seen Smile 2, you know just how worse things are about to get in that universe. But a lot of movies don't settle on it's all good. Like we will win. Most movies these days, people kind of want that solid ending, that solid answer, but Cosmic says no answer, no satisfaction, potential endless madness. Sign me up every fucking time. Seriously, Damon.
Have we regressed as moviegoers to where we can't? And I bring up David Lynch again because you've seen any David Lynch movie and you think you get an ending, you're fucking out of your mind. Like never, there's not a David Lynch movie that ends with like, oh yeah, I totally know what how that ended and what's going on. But I'm curious, like, because and this is not just John Carpenter, but you think about like that like let's just focus on John Carpenter though for the second. Like you think about The Thing, you never get the total answer. Did the Thing survive? Prince of Darkness? Did they actually kill Satan in the Mouth of Madness? Does everyone actually go mad? Is this really happening? And I think about like in that documentary In the Search of Darkness, Mike Flanagan is one of the people talking about In the Mouth of Madness, and he loves it. He's talking about how much he loved one of his favorite Carpenter films. Now you can have your opinion about Mike Flanagan. The general consensus of the horror community is he's God reborn. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's neither here nor there. But I do like a lot of Mike Flanagan's work, and my favorite one being Midnight Mass, and I know that's your favorite as well. Now
Yeah.
that movie has a more definitive beginning, middle, and end, right? Like there's not really a left unknown in the end of that movie. Like we kind of figure out what happened at the end of that movie or the end of that story, the end of that series. Ryan Coogler was on, I think it was Stephen Colbert talking about how much he loved The Thing, and that's where they had that talk about like, did is Childs is that actually the thing or not, or is it McCready?
It's
And
McCready.
and Coogler's like, oh yeah, I love that movie, whatever. But you look at Sinners, which our favorite movie last year, our favorite movie the last 5 years. That gives you a definitive ending, and even with a post-credit scene, that gives you a definitive ending. Are we too afraid to test the boundaries of these kind of films these days? And I'm not, by the way, I'm certainly not questioning Mike Flanagan and Ryan Coogler's bad storytelling. I'm just
Sure.
using them as an example of like two guys who have mentioned specifically these are two of their favorite Carpenter films. Mike Flanagan with In the Mouth of Madness and Ryan Coogler with The Thing. But I'm sure they have to recognize that like in 2025 or 2026 now, our audience is just too like enamored with a closed book ending that we can't have these kind of movies anymore because you think about Midnight Mass, they could have had that ending. You think about Sinners, it could. By the way, I'm not insulting the ending. I love Sinners.
No,
I
you're
think
just
it's
saying,
basically
yeah,
a
you could have
perfect.
played those
But
games.
could you have played? And I just wonder, like, have we lost that savviness as moviegoers, as storytellers that we just like we understand the mass audience would never accept that kind of unknown ending.
Damon, I think, for fear of sounding like an old man and going, well, in my day, we could do that. The difference it's not about what we can and can't do. It's the standards that are being set now. The standards are not being set by the filmmakers. The standards are being set by the studios. Netflix is the most notorious of them all, which is reiterate the plot every 10 minutes so that way people can understand what's happening from the side of their phone. They're engineering films to be understood while you don't watch them. That's the whole thing. Now, a movie like Mouth of Madness, a movie, any David Lynch movie. Ironically, David Lynch had a short film on Netflix a while back. Um, those movies just Netflix would never agree to those movies. They would be like, absolutely not. You have to tell people everything that happened, and you have to make the end solid because that person's not watching. They're watching on their phone while you make your movie. So you need to tell them what happened. That's not me. That's a directive from the most powerful studio on the planet right now. That's their directive, and they're about to acquire Warner Brothers, which is the, in my opinion, the greatest studio in the history of Hollywood. And I go, oh, I don't know. I don't like that. And it's not necessarily like you could make these movies. You can make these movies, and people will sit and watch them if you can get them to watch them. Some people do it, some people don't. Some people literally are like, dude, I watch a movie on 2X on my laptop while I'm working, while I'm on my phone. That's how I watch movies. Some people are like that. Others aren't. Others, by the way, Gen Z, biggest demographic of moviegoers around. It's not about the kids these days. It's not about, well, we did it better back in our day. No, Gen Zers love going to the movies. So if you can put it in a theater, fucking go for it. Make that movie. Make that movie for a movie theater. If it goes to, if you make it independently and then shop it around, odds are good streamers are going to be like, I can't help you with that. We have a certain protocol here because they want your subscription, and they want you to be able to tell people, yeah, oh yeah, I loved In the Mouth of Madness 2026. It was great. I watched it from the side of my phone. I knew everything that was going on. They don't say that literally, but that's what they're thinking. And then they recommend it to people, and those people subscribe, and ad nauseum, that's how the streamers work these days. So you would be kind of up shit's creek if you made a movie like that and then tried to sell it. You'd have to get like an A24 on board or a Neon on board, somebody, a studio that's down to take chances and go, what we have our partners in streaming that back us up and use our brand to put those things out there. And I think that's how you get movies like this out.
Well, and you got to remember, I'm talking like I'm saying our audiences, like our audio, would audiences not really accept these kind of films in 2026? The reality is, like it or not, they didn't really accept them in the 80s either. Because remember, when The Thing came out, that movie bombed.
Yeah,
like
Thing bombed.
John Carpenter thought his career was over. He's like, oh fuck, like nobody liked my movie. You just mentioned at the beginning of the show, In the Mouth of Madness was made for $8 million. It made $8.9 million, which means it lost money because with marketing and advertising and all that shit, like it lost money. I don't know what the box office was with Prince of Darkness. I can't say I have that in front of me, but like I imagine it probably didn't make a boatload of money. So like and it took years to get, like now every like hardcore horror fan, I won't say everybody, but I would say like 90% of horror fans love The Thing. And they actually say it's John Carpenter's best work. It's better than Halloween, which it is.
I agree.
But it took years for people to accept that movie because when it came out, it got trashed critically and commercially. And like In the Mouth of Madness, it didn't do well, and it didn't actually have. If you look at the reviews, they're not great reviews. It's got like a 40% or something or 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, which that's basically saying like people don't like your movie. Because, you got to have like a 90% or whatever dumb score they put on there to be. I fucking hate that. But anyways, like, so it's not like they were like these huge smash hits that everyone accepted, right? But I think you just get that segment of the audience that understands it. And then as more people are willing to accept that kind of story and you hear enough people like trustworthiness, if I say, hey, like our audience, I would hope at this point, 300 some odd episodes in, they would trust our judgment a little bit by what we're saying. Not every time. I understand. We always tell people don't always trust our judgment. Go see for yourself. But like if I say, man, you got to see In the Mouth of Madness. It is a weird, funky horror film, and it's worth your time. And yes, it's bizarre. And it's cosmic horror, and it doesn't give you like a bookend where you're just like, oh, I know exactly what happened. But you're gonna love it. I would hope people would trust us enough to stay to go watch it. And guess what? I think that's probably how these films have found success all these years later, because now John Carpenter, what's his best movie? Oh, it's The Thing. Like, I understand, like, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to say Halloween, but there's a lot of people, like, the filmmakers and the hardcore cinephiles will say The Thing. And it's, I mean, I love it. It's not even, but it's still not even my favorite John Carpenter film. But you think about that, and like, in this day and age, I think the closest we get to that kind of weird non-linear storytelling and like non-bookend kind of storyteller, I think is probably Yorgos Lanthimos. Like probably, like The Lobster's a weird fucking movie. like what is the one he put out right before Begonia, the one that I liked and no one else.
Poor things in Begonia are pretty straightforward endings to
Poor
me.
Things, but what's the other, the one,
Oh,
the one with
Kinds of Kindness.
Kinds of Kindness. I loved that movie. It's a fucking weird movie, but I loved it. My girlfriend hated it. We saw it in the theater, and she's like, "Can I go out? Can I leave?" I was like, "I'm staying right here." And plus, it had Hunter Schafer in it, which I love Hunter Schafer. But I was like, I love this movie. It's fucking bizarre, but I loved it. And it felt to me as like the closest. It's like Yorgos Lanthimos is David Lynch's like illegitimate child. I loved it. And Begonia is a weird. I know Begonia is a little more straightforward, but it's fucking weird too. Don't deny it's weird. It's weird.
Oh, it's weird, but I think you can safely say, yeah, there's an end, there's an answer, you know.
There is, but it's a weird movie. Like it's like
Yes, it's weird. It's great, by the way. I highly
it
recommend
is.
Begonia.
I love Begonia, but like generally speaking, like it just takes the right kind of storyteller to get you there. But remember, Yorgos Lanthimos movies aren't making billions of dollars in theater. They're not. He's not tearing it up and making But because he's such a well-respected director, and he gets people like Emma Stone and Jesse Plemons, and all these like well-known A-list actors, to star in his films. People are just like, all right, very much think about right now. I've seen a ton today, which by the time this episode drops, is going to come days after we record it. But I think the day before we're recording this was the 1-year anniversary of David Lynch's passing, and I've seen so many actors, Naomi Watts and Kyle MacLachlan, and like everyone who worked with him, just paying tribute to working with David Lynch because they loved working with David Lynch. And you think about like in his heyday, Bill Pullman and Patricia Arquette and all the great actors. Kyle MacLachlan wouldn't have a career without David Lynch. And you think about Naomi Watts, who I think she's an Oscar winner if I'm not mistaken. She's she loves David Lynch. She worked with him many, many times. And I think that's what you have to you have to have that now to get these kind of movies made, because Yorgos Lanthimos movies are not making a ton of money at the box office. But Emma Stone is like, hey, I love Yorgos Lanthimos. I don't care what you're doing. I want to be in your film. Well, guess what? Emma Stone is a proven box office winner, a darling, a critically acclaimed Academy Award winning actress. People will watch because they don't oh, well, Emma Stone wants to do your movie? Well, fuck, we'll produce it. That's how it takes now. But like I said, it's not like John Carpenter's movies, The Thing and Prince of Darkness and then Mouth of Madness, were just tearing it up at the box office. It's not like Yorgos Lanthimos movies or David Lynch's movies tear it up at the box office. It takes time and word of mouth to get people to appreciate these films. But I like when I'm almost correcting myself now when I say, can audiences accept these films? I don't think they ever accepted them truly. Like, not like any of these movies were like blockbusters.
No, I don't think they were. But John Carpenter himself is the brand. That's the thing. So if I tell for instance, if I told my 8-year-old who loves The Thing, I go, oh, it's the same guy who directed The Thing. He would want to know. He would go, well, I love The Thing, so I want to see if it's the other guy. He doesn't know John Carpenter. He just knows, oh, he made the Thing. Then show me the other things he makes. And I'm not saying he's going to sit down and lock in for this movie, but something about it might tickle his fancy, or at minimum, he'll at least get engaged enough to check it out because he goes, yeah, I like that. And John Carpenter, I think, in my opinion, has made his way in this business being John Carpenter, the way Yorgos Lanthimos is paving his way in the business being Yorgos Lanthimos. Now, the difference between the two is Yorgos gets very good names to show up. And I'm not saying any of these people are bad in the Mouth of Madness or Prince of Darkness. These are not people who lit up the box office. Even Kurt Russell, who is, one of the most beloved actors of all time, he was never like a box office superstar. That's never who he was. He was always he might just be the greatest character actor that ever lived, is who Kurt Russell is. But, was he ever lighting up the fucking box office? Not really. So that's, that was Carpenter's way. Carpenter's way was sort of like, I'm going to make these movies that are unapologetically me. I'm not asking for permission. I don't give a shit. Yes, would I have loved if they made hundreds of millions of dollars at the box office? Of course. I've got weed to smoke and basketball games to watch. I could use the money.
And video games to buy.
And video games to play. But trust me, I could use the money. Like he's not going to turn it down. But I think once he made Halloween, And I mean, Halloween was a smash. He probably still lives on Halloween money if you really think about it. I think he never had to answer to anyone else again. After Halloween, he's like, I don't give a shit. Yes, he wanted the thing to be successful, and it was his tryout for the big leagues. All the studios were watching the thing to see what would happen. And it flopped at the box office, and very foolishly, the studio said, nah, I guess we won't take him because he doesn't make a bunch of money. Not seeing that he was an uncompromising visionary, and that's exactly what makes him interesting. And that's what makes this movie interesting, is that it does not try to soften the blow. It doesn't try to land the plane nicely. He's saying, I'm making a cosmic horror. We're going to end like a fucking cosmic horror ends. We're going to end in unspeakable, unknowable madness. And I'm not going to apologize for that. In fact, I'm going to laugh in your face about it. Quite literally, that's what Sam Neill does at the end. Like, you thought this was over? It's going to continue forever. It will never get out of it, and you'll never get the answer. You'll never get the satisfaction of knowing because you're in Trent's shoes the entire story. And you will never get that satisfaction. That's John Carpenter committing to the DNA of cosmic horror. I mean, what are you going to do? What are you going to say to John Carpenter? You did it wrong? Absolutely.
And also, last thing I'll say before we get to categories with John Carpenter, you know, I mentioned like he's my favorite horror director because like out of all his entire horror filmography, there's like one or two movies that I'm not a giant fan of. But what I love about John Carpenter's filmography, and In the Mouth of Madness speaks to that perfectly, is this guy's not afraid to take chances, and you never, while you could absolutely peg down John Carpenter's style, like when I watch Escape from New York, which is not a horror movie, it's a sci-fi, you know, kind of a futuristic, you know, dour dystopian kind of film, but it's not a horror movie. I see John Carpenter's fingerprints all over that movie, and not just because it stars Kurt Russell and Tom Atkins, and and Adrienne Barbeau, which are people he worked with numerous times throughout his career. But I can see a John Carpenter film and be like, oh yeah, it's a John Carpenter film. Maybe it's a score, which I think he's like the best horror composer ever. Period. My personal opinion. Like I love his scores. But John Carpenter, like, none of his movies are really like, yes, they have his signature fingerprints all over it, but like they're not all the same. Like The Thing is an alien shape-shifting horror film set in the middle of the fucking Arctic. Prince of Darkness is a movie set in like a New York church where Liquid Satan lives, starring Alice Cooper and a bunch of, Donald Pleasance, of course, who we worked with a million times, and a bunch of other weird no-name actors. Big Trouble in Little China, which once again, not a horror movie, but what a wackadoo, what a great movie that is, but totally whacked out sci-fi adventure movie. You look at In the Mouth of Madness, it's cosmic horror, 100% pure, unadulterated H.P. Lovecraft cosmic horror. Vampires, which I know is not his most popular film, but I adore that movie. It's a vampire story. It's a different kind of vampire story. James Woods is great in that movie. It's a great movie, but it's not, none of these movies share that same DNA. You cannot just say like, oh, he always makes the same movie. He has a John Carpenter style, which I love, but you can't say like, oh, he made The Thing. Of course he made In the Mouth of Madness. No, they are not like, do they have similar subject matter in like the apocalyptic idea, which like he talked about his apocalyptic trilogy? Sure. But there's a million movies about the end of the world. I mean, fucking Armageddon's about the end of the world. Fucking Deep Impact's about the end of the world.
Yeah.
They're all different. And I love that you can't peg this guy down. And I'm not going to name names of directors out there who I do love. But there's a lot of directors you can say, oh yeah, he's making his movie, another of his movies, another his style movie. Hell, my guy Tarantino to a certain extent with his crime thrillers. You can say, yeah, his crime movies are all Tarantino. You can't say that about John Carpenter. You can't say like, oh, if you watched Halloween and then you watched it In the Mouth of Madness, would you have any fucking idea that this is the same guy? Like the fingerprints of how he makes a movie, sure, but like they're two totally different movies.
The only way you could ever possibly connect him is through his music. You go, well, it kind of sounds like parts of Halloween, kind of sounds like parts of The Thing. That's about it. Really, but no, John is in the attitude, and actually we're about to get into it right now. John is into the performances. That's really where John shines.
He does. Well, with that being said, Patrick, let's get into some categories. Let's kick things off as we do each and every week here on the show. And let's talk about best performance. So when it looks like In the Mouth of Madness, who gets your award for the best performance?
My best performance actually goes to Jurgen Prochnow, which I believe I'm saying his name right, who plays the elusive Sutter Cane. And this is what I mean when I say John Carpenter is a performance director, which if I have to break anything down about what I love as a director, I love watching performances. I love watching actors go for it. Jurgen is a character actor, and he's very recognizable from the 1980s and the 1990s. And it's just like you needed Sutter Kane, who was this very mysterious and just sort of like ominous figure in the first act of this movie. Like, who is Sutter Kane? Who can he possibly be? And then he shows up and he's got this weird kind of coiffed hair and he's in a black trench coat and he speaks with a strange accent and it doesn't quite make sense. And then he delivers the way he delivers the lines, it's like he's not even from this world. And you go, nobody would even fucking talk like that ever, except for in a John Carpenter movie. It makes complete sense that this sort of wild-eyed and fanatical wordsmith would take the shape of this guy. Like I think John Carpenter really embraced what the 90s, like he always embraced his era. Whatever he when it was the 70s with Halloween or Assault on Precinct 13, like that's unmistakable the 1970s. The Thing is unmistakably the 80s. Big Trouble in Little China, Escape from New York. This is very 90s. And he shapes Jurgen into this 90s, like this uber 90s guy. And I fucking loved it. Like Jurgen answered the call, and that's why he got my best performance.
Jürgen Prochnow is one of those character actors who pops up in a lot of great movies, and he's always good at what he does. Like he plays the villain in Beverly Hills Cop 2. He plays the villain in Air Force One. He just pops up in movies, and like everything he's in makes better. And I'm surprised never worked with Jürgen Prochnow, honestly, because he's like one of those weird foreign character actors that just pops up. I'm actually shocked he never appeared in a Tarantino movie. Like if they made In the Mouth of Madness in 2026, tell me that Christoph Waltz would not play Sutter Kane.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's like a very Christoph Waltz thing.
Weird, foreign, like, you know what I mean? Kind of like a little charming, kind of scary kind of girl. Like, that's who Jürgen Prochnow is. Like, he's great. I was looking at his filmography just now. Like, the dude has a ridiculous filmography when you think about like all the stuff he's been in. Like, it's kind of crazy, like all the insane amount of movies this guy's been. Like, I mentioned Beverly Hills Cop 2. He was also in the original Dune, the David Lynch movie Dune. He was in that, of course. He played Duke Leto Atreides. The Seventh Sign, which of course is a movie with Demi Moore. I mentioned, of course, like, he was in In the Mouth of Madness. I'm going down the list here. Air Force One. I mean, he's just in so many weird movies and so many random movies where he plays. Generally, he's playing like a villain or something. He's like that kind of guy. But he's in Twin Peaks, Fire Walk with Me. So he did work with David Lynch a couple times. But yeah, like I love him. He's great in this movie. And like when I think like that, the famous line from this movie is, "Do you read Sutter Cane?" You can't think of Sutter Kane without thinking of Jürgen Prochnow. Like, it's just the automatic thing, and that's a great character actor when you're like, oh yeah, I cannot separate name without seeing that face, and he's great in this movie. Patrick, the real answer is probably Jürgen Prochnow. I love him in this movie, but just to kind of give shine to someone else, I have to give it to Sam Neill, because Sam Neill is a great actor, and like I've seen him in a lot of different things, and I know that John Carpenter worked with him on the movie he made, Memoirs of an Invisible Man, was where he worked with him, and then he ended up casting him in this movie. And, of course, everyone who knows Sam Neill knows him from Jurassic Park, which is his most famous role. But Sam Neill's in so many other good movies. Like, of course, he played the adult Damien in the Omen movies. He's in Event Horizon, which is a great movie. Another cosmic, I think that's kind of a cosmic horror.
That's very cosmic, yes.
I love Sam Neill, and he's just, like, here's what I love about his performance in this movie. He embraces the batshit. Like, he embraces, like I said, he has a great scream in this movie. There's so many moments when he's got wide-eyed and he's just like, what the fuck is going on? He's just got like a great reaction to everything in this movie, and everything is like shocking. His eyes go wide, his gaping mouth, and like I just love his reactions in this movie, and he's great. Like he's just got a great. Like, it was perfect casting in this movie.
Damon, that rolls right into my MVP because you cannot have a classic cosmic horror without the king of cosmic horror. That's Sam Neill. Sam Neill does In the Mouth of Madness. Well, he also did another film called Possession, which we brought up earlier, which is 100% a cosmic horror. And boy, I mean, good. So a lot of people haven't seen Possession. It's not the most seen movie, but it is sort of it's sort of echoes in the halls of horror. Like we know about Possession. Some of us have seen it, some of us have not. Have you seen it?
I have, yes.
Okay, yeah. So it's a kooky, it's a really out there movie. And then also, as you mentioned, Event Horizon, another classic cosmic horror. I may even be skipping a few, but those are three big ones. They're not just any old like cosmic horrors. They are like some of the pinnacles of cosmic horror. If you're going to do it, you need to do it with Sam Neill. And I love that about Sam Neill. I love the fact that Sam Neill is this cosmic horror junkie, and then his biggest role is like Steven Spielberg going, "Hey, why don't you lead my dinosaur movie?" Like, I love that happened for Sam Neill. It's like he is literally part of one of the biggest franchises of all time, Jurassic Park. And in my opinion, Jurassic Park itself is an incredible movie, a really great movie. But I just love that Sam Neill is like the go-to cosmic horror lead actor.
He's just good all the way around. Like, I'm a fan of Sam Neill, and yeah, like what a great piece of casting. Because like I said, John Carpenter, we mentioned like he's not the guy who was casting the most good-looking, hulkiest, good-looking dude in his movies. Like I mentioned, like I mean, listen, I know that like Tom Atkins is just pure sex, but like generally speaking, most of I mean, Kurt Russell is a good-looking dude, but like he puts on like long hair, a weird hat, and a giant beard. Like he kind of covers up who Kurt Russell looks like. Like he doesn't look like he does in like Tango and Cash when he's all chiseled and he's got the great '80s hair. But he's not casting people because, oh yeah, you're a good looking dude, let me put you in my movie. And Sam Neill, like leading this movie, is a perfect example of that. Like you don't look at Sam Neill and be like, oh my God, he's people's most sexiest man alive. Yeah. I'm not saying he's like an ugly dude or anything. I'm just saying like they're not. Yeah. He's not Ryan Gosling. And I like that. Like that he just exudes what this movie's all about. And it would not be the same movie with anybody else in this lead role. So for me, MVP, I'm not going to deny, and you know where I'm going with this, Patrick. I'm going with the lowest hanging fruit possible, but I got to give credit. He is my favorite guy in the world. I literally drove 3.5 hours to meet him a couple years ago because I had to do it, and that is John Carpenter. He is my favorite horror director, and I got to be honest, like he hasn't directed in a long time, and his last couple movies, got to be honest, like I said, I love most of his filmography. His last couple movies are probably the movies I like the least. The Ward, not particularly a good movie. Ghost of Mars, not particularly a great movie. He did do a 1 hour film in the Masters of Horror called Cigarette Burns with Norman Reedus. Love that. That's a really good. That's also fucking weird. Have you ever seen that? It's a very
it's a super weird movie.
Very weird little 1 hour movie of his. And John Carpenter doesn't direct anymore, and he's always said like if the right opportunity came along, he would do it again. But he's kind of just out, playing music and writing, doing albums. Which, by the way, as I said, incredible composer. I bought all of his albums. Like he's still making great music, but he's kind of just left directing behind. And like when you see him talk, like he's almost disinterested in his own work. He's like, yeah, I made that movie like 30 years ago. Who gives a fuck? Let me talk about college basketball. But this is just a perfect example, like showing that, like even from like 1979 and even Dark Star before that, but like all the way through the 80s and into the 90s, there was still so much talent possessed in John Carpenter. To see what he saw in this script, rework it a little bit in his John Carpenter way, and then unravel it in this movie. And much like The Thing, it took In the Mouth of Madness years to get people to really come on board with how great this movie is, because now. I mentioned Mike Flanagan. I know he's not alone in this, but you mentioned this to like most avid horror fans. They'll say, "Oh, I love In the Mouth of Madness. Like, it's a great movie." 1995, not so much, but 30 years later, people are like, "Oh yeah, I love that movie. I appreciate it." And that's kind of John Carpenter's mark in life, if we're being honest. Outside of Halloween, like he's just not the guy who's opening a movie and it's got $100 million opening. It just doesn't happen for him. Never did. But just like Prince of Darkness, very small movie, one of his smaller on his catalog. But if you talk to people who know that movie, you're like, oh, I love Prince of Darkness. I love The Thing. That's kind of John Carpenter. Like, he's got longevity, man. Like, his movies get better with age, which, let's be honest, I watched Trading Places the other night, one of my all-time favorite comedies. That movie did not get better with age. Trust me, there's some really, like, we talk Revenge of the Nerds. Oh my God, did that movie not get
Yeah.
better with age? John Carpenter's movies get better with age.
Because I think John Carpenter's honest. I think that's the thing. Is like he's a very honest filmmaker, and he's going. It's got to be everything about the my characters and what they're going through has to come from the gut. And he does it in his heightened way too. He does it in a way that kind of lifts it out of reality. But when you do that, when you lift it out of reality, it kind of becomes timeless. And so you end up being able to look back on John Carpenter stuff and go, I still get it. I know, like you show it to some kid and you're like, in 1995, I have no concept of what that was. But you get what he's after. You understand the characters, how they're feeling, what they're up to, because he cares about performance more than anything. More like he's almost like disinterested with like visual flair, which I think some people will be like, what do you mean? I go, look at his movies again. He's not about visual flair. He's about striking moments. And most of those moments need to come from the performances. God, the performances in the thing are incredible. Everything about the thing is incredible, but those performances, holy fucking shit. Like that carries you through the movie. Sam Neill carries you through In the Mouth of Madness. And believe me, I don't, if you ask John, he might say, yeah, I don't know. I kind of remember directing that. I'm not sure. But he knew in the moment, he knew when he was on set there with Sam Neill, he goes, you and me, we're going to drag everybody through this movie and the insanity of it all. Like that's how we're going to get through this.
And it's funny because I know you mentioned earlier, like he's the grumpiest director, but when you hear people who work with him, people love working with him. Like Kurt Russell raves about working with John Carpenter.
Sure,
Jamie
yeah. If you're on his good side, if you're on his good side, you're loving John Carpenter. Don't get on his bad side. You will never get out from under it.
If you are Rob Zombie, you will never be on John Carpenter's good side. He fucking hates Rob Zombie. But yeah, but the people who actually worked with him and who liked it, they loved it. Like Jamie Lee Curtis, like she constantly pays tribute to John Carpenter, and so does Kurt Russell. And like those two are probably the stars who went on to have the biggest careers after being in John Carpenter. Well, Jamie Lee Curtis, of course, the biggest, but Kurt Russell not far behind. And they went on to have huge careers, and they still talk about like how much they liked working with John Carpenter. So he definitely had an influence on the actors he worked with as well. And also remember, when he worked with Kurt Russell in 1982 or whenever he made the thing, he wasn't a household name at that point. Jamie Lee Curtis' literally first movie role was Halloween. So like John Carpenter's got an eye for talent. So
he does. He's fantastic. I love John.
Next category, Patrick, best scare. This is a horror movie, and like I said, that kid getting hit with a fucking bike is a great scare, but it's not my favorite scare. So what is your favorite scare, your best scare in the Mouth of Madness?
I titled my scare Styles Jumps His Bones because Styles gets weirder and weirder as the movie goes on. But there's a couple of gags that he uses more than once in this movie, and that is like opening a door and something comes after him, or being near a door and something fucking jumps at him. At one point, he opens a door and Styles literally just jumps onto him like it attacks him. And she's, I think, if I can remember correctly, trying to be romantic with him, but she's clearly like insane in the moment. Like it's not a safe moment, but I thought it was a very funny scare.
So that is a good one, and like Styles behind the door, and you see like the fucking flailing arms and shit, and then you see there's a lot of weird, crazy scares like that. My favorite scare, and the one that to this day still gets me. I've seen this movie 30 times. You saw it once. I've seen it 30 times. Still makes me jump. Is the scene where early in the movie where John Trent is reading all of Sutter Cane's novels. And he keeps going back to that one scene where he sees the poster and he goes in the alley and he sees the cop beating up the graffiti artist. And he says, "You want some too, buddy?" And he goes back in the dream world and he sees it, and he sees the agent and a bunch of people come over and hack him to death with axes. And he wakes up and he jolts. He's like, "Oh man." And he looks over and the fucking mutant cop is there and he's like, "You want some too, buddy?" And fucking every time and then he wakes up from the real dream. That you're talking about, is it dream or is it reality?
Yeah.
That gets me because when he wakes up jolts up from the dream, he's like, "Oh shit." And you think you're back in the real world, and he turns to the side, and there's the fucking mutant cop. Gets me every single time.
Yeah, John Carpenter has a gift for stuff like that, where he can get you with that one scene. It hits every time. It's great timing. He's got good timing.
You want some too, buddy? Patrick, what is the weirdest shit in this But this is like a grading scale here because it's all kind of weird shit.
It's
What
all
is
weird
the
shit here.
weirdest shit in the Mouth of Madness?
The weirdest shit might be the most innocuous, really, like on paper anyway. Like, because you could describe hell beasts and you know, children with elderly faces and all that stuff. But the one that really got me was when he keeps coming back to Mrs. Pickman, who is supposedly the sadist, but every time Trent sees her, she seems to be a completely fine and nice old lady, played by the great character actor. Oh gosh, what's her name? I need to
Francis
remember her
Bay.
name. Frances Bay, the great Frances Bay, who's been in tons of, she was like the sweet old lady in every single movie for like
She's Happy
25.
Gilmore's grandmother. Happy
Happy
Gilmore's
Gilmore's
grandmother.
grandma. She's just a sweet old lady, but she's supposed to be the sadistic killer in Sutter Cane's book. And every time Trent meets her, he's like, "There's nothing wrong with this lady." That's why I know I'm not in some weird alternate universe because it's just a nice old lady. And he walks away from her, and then the camera jibs down behind the desk, and Grandpa is on the floor, handcuffed to her ankle, butt ass naked. And you're like, what the fuck is that shit? What? By the way, we don't find out why. We never really get into why that is. We know that she's going to torture and kill him, but we don't really know why he needs to be handcuffed to her ankle.
Yeah, and she like kicks him. She's like, "Shut the fuck up."
Yeah.
Yeah, and like at one point she's like, do you know who Sutter Cane is?" And she's like, "Hell no." It's a very weird character, but great, and it's a great performance in there. So I had a couple options here, but the one I ultimately went with were the fucking weird kids in this movie,
Yes.
because when they first arrive at Hobbs End, you don't see anybody in the town, and these kids run around the corner. They're chasing a dog, and they're all kind of weird. And then when you first get to the church, they're all there, and they're all kind of weird, and they're just like hanging out and styles. But the one that really gets me every time is when the little girl is transformed into half a creature, and she's like, "Do you know
Yes.
what day it is? It's Mommy's Day."
It's
it's
mommy's day.
it's so fucking weird, but like so creepy. And by the way, like that's a child actor, but like when she delivers that line, when she's like, "Do you know what day it is? It's Mommy's Day." it's so it's
With her
so
weird
creepy
ass
and weird.
face.
I know, and I love it too. Like it's just like the evolution of the creepy children in this movie really pays off. So I think that's the weirdest shit. When he says it's Mommy's Day, gets me every time. Like fuck this town.
That was a very fuck this town moment.
Yeah. Patrick, next category, best cosmic beast. We are in a very cosmic horror film. So what was your favorite cosmic beast in The Mouth of Madness?
I had to go with the style spider. Now there are truly better beasts in the movie, but boy was it the creepiest one because I think it tapped into the uncanny valley when she kind of does this like contortion walk, which is you've seen in other horror movies and stuff where they're kind of walking bridged on their own back and all that stuff. But her head is turned the wrong way round while she walks while she flips back over and starts chasing after him on all fours and her head's flipped the wrong way around. It's creepy and it's weird. And I was like, well, I like that. Like that is the one thing in here that's really kind of getting under my skin.
Yeah, that's a good scene and really fitting of like watching poor John Trent just totally dip into like what the fuck is going on territory. My favorite cosmic beast was almost my favorite weird moment, but I had to split it up because I couldn't use it for both. My favorite cosmic beast is actually probably my favorite weird moment because it makes no fucking sense, but it's awesome. Is when Styles goes to visit Sutter Cane at the church and he tells her like this is my greatest weird move, my greatest book, my greatest work, and he shoves her face into the pages and the light comes on and she like sees all the visions of the monsters and shit, and then like she doesn't kiss him, but she like grabs him and reaches around his head and starts feeling around. And there's like the fucking beast on the back of his
Yeah.
head, and it's the weirdest shit because like it clearly wasn't there before. But just
Yeah.
out of nowhere, he's got fucking Quatu from fucking running. What is it? Total Recall.
Yeah.
Quado is fucking on the back of his head and shit. And I'm like, what is going on here? And she's like rubbing it and like it's all slimy and its mouth is moving open. But she's not kissing him. She's like caressing him. It's a fucking weird moment. But that creature on the back of Sutter Kane's head just out of nowhere gets me every time. And I'm just like, what is going on here?
That is probably the inspiration for Malignant right there. Because Malignant's a
Yes.
very 90s movie if you've ever watched it. Malignant's a 90s movie. I won't spoil it, but there is It's a very important part of that movie if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, fucking. That is just like every time I see him, like, what, huh? Where did the creature in the back of his head come from?
It really comes
Works
out of
really
nowhere.
well. Patrick, next category: can we survive this horror film? Now I'm going to go first on this one because the idea of this movie is that we're all devolving into madness. We're all devolving and transforming into these creatures. And I just said earlier, like, in reality, I would be John Trent because I am a natural skeptic. That is who I am in the world. It's well documented. I'm an atheist. I am a believer in science. I'm a believer in, like, can you prove it to me? I'll believe it. So I would be John Trent up to the very end of this movie. But do I survive it? No, because clearly the idea of this movie is that nobody survives. You're like, no matter how much you believe in reality, this shit's going to get to you eventually. You're going to get infected by this madness or this cosmic horror. So I would be John Trent right up to the line, but then I'd be the fucking wackadoo in the theater laughing at myself on screen, realizing, oh, we're all fucked. So I probably survived longer than most, but I end up like everybody else.
I feel very similar. I feel like I definitely would be skeptical the entire way and looking for the way to rationalize it or even solve the problem, but you cannot escape the cosmic doom. You just can't. And I do have a penchant for madness, and it would certainly take hold at some point, and then before I know it, I'd be spiraling. And because that's just how it goes. You're not surviving this horror movie.
Yeah, and much like Iron Maiden famously said, "Can I play with madness?"
You will be playing with madness.
Patrick, next category: remake, sequel, or leave it alone. This is pretty self-explanatory, but this is the category we look at whatever movie we're reviewing and we say, should they remake it, should they sequelize it, or should they just leave it alone? So when it comes to John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness, remake, sequel, leave it alone.
Damon, I know this is one of your favorite movies, but I may have to upset you here. I do believe it's a remake worthy thing, but here's the caveat. Don't just remake it. Remake it as a series. Now, we just finished covering It Welcome to Derry, and our patrons got to hear the full breakdown of that show. Excellent show. One of the better horror shows I've ever seen, ever, honestly. Like, it had its faults, but ultimately it landed in a really great place. This movie is it's a very clever premise, but what the big part of the movie that I feel is never explored enough is the fact that Sutter Cane can write reality into existence. Basically, his words create reality. Now, I understand why you can't explore that in a 90-minute movie, but in a 10-hour episodal television show, you certainly could. You certainly could explain why a certain episode is so strange and weird and how it was his plan all along and how the writing itself can change what is actually happening in reality and make you question that reality is even real, or am I just words on a page? Am I just because he thought of me? Is that how this works? You could really do something with this as a television series.
So my natural answer is leave it alone because John Carpenter I think is literally, they call him a master of horror for a reason, and I think that's right. And you don't need to fuck with his work because a lot of people said that, like, oh, you could remake the thing with better better graphics, better
Sure.
effects, and I'm like, no, fuck off. That is a perfect movie. Don't fuck with it. So in a lot of ways, my answer is leave it alone. But to your point, the reason why I would support a remake in what you're suggesting, like a 10 episode like HBO series or something like that, because when you do that in this day and age, you're going to get people who never saw the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, as we said, this movie made $8.9 million at the theater. You've never seen it before 24 hours ago. I'm not holding against you. I'm just saying, like, you had never seen
what it is. Yeah.
If they did a series with Christoph Waltz as Sutter Cane, let me just go ahead and cast that for you, folks. Fuck yes. And you're going to get people who are going to be like, ooh, what is this? Oh, it's based on a John Carpenter movie? Let me go watch that movie. So my real answer is leave it alone because I think it's one of Carpenter's best works. But for your suggestion, you're not quite, you are remaking it, but you're reimagining it in a 10
Yeah,
episodes. You're going to get a lot
I'm
more out of it.
re-emphasizing certain things in it. Yeah.
and you put Christoph Waltz as Sutter Cane, I'm in. Tell me that wouldn't be the perfect Sutter Cane. Come on, Christoph Waltz in that role, that charismatic, creepy dude. Like, come on.
You know you are going to draw serious talent. You just know you are. A lot of people are going to want in on something like that. So HBO, I am available, just so you know.
Yeah. So, like I said, I'd be on board. I like because it's not just a straight up remake. It's a reimagining, and I think in a 10 episode series, you can really explore some fucking weird shit.
Oh
Uh,
yes.
Pat, Patrick, last category is always, is it scary? So when it comes to In the Mouth of Madness, is it scary?
Yes, Damon, this is a scary movie. It's classic 1990s scary, and if you have any nostalgia for the 90s, it is going to absolutely scratch that itch. But ultimately, it's scary because of its of the breakdown of the psyche, of the fact that the unknown is the known, the fact that the answers will not be given, the fact that there is no escape. It's existential dread. Existential dread to me is my favorite kind of dread. Just the idea that deep down you have no control, and what is coming for you no matter what you do, no matter how skeptical you are, no matter how smart you are, no matter how good you are at making decisions that get you out of trouble. You can't escape this. It's inevitable. I love shit like that. And that to me is scary.
So in the traditional sense, it's scary because there are some good jump scares. I mentioned the kid on the bike. I mentioned my scene with the fucking weird mutant cop. Like, there's legitimately moments that will make you jump, and they're great scenes. But that breakdown of reality, what you're talking about, like that wall of reality comes shattering around you, and you don't know what's real, and you don't know what's what is not. That makes this movie brilliant and makes it even more terrifying because, like, imagine you talk about being in John Trent's shoes. Like, you are convinced throughout this entire movie it's a giant PR plot. It's all special effects. They're all doing this for the purpose of fucking with you. So when you go back to town, you tell the world, oh yeah, it's all real. Sutter Kane's a master, and he's actually creating this world. But he fights against that instinct so much because in his reality is like, this can't happen. This can't happen. But by the
Yeah.
end of the movie, he has to accept that reality has shattered. He was written into this world by Sutter Cane, and the weird creatures from beyond are coming to take over our world, and they're already taking over our world. That messes with you on so many different levels, and that existential dread that you always talk about, it is dripping at the end of this movie. And like I said, that ending of like, you don't know what's next, but you kind of do. Like, you realize we're all fucked is basically the best way I can say it. Like, we're all
Yeah.
screwed. There's no getting out of this. That's terrifying. And to even have the idea that you don't, like, that to me, I'm not trying to get like, I'm not trying to get controversial about it. That to me is one of the things that is always like, I won't say terrified me, but like, I'm just like, I don't know why anyone would want, like, when you talk about like religion, like that a deity just controls everything.
Yeah.
Isn't that a little terrifying?
I
Like,
mean,
you don't have autonomous control over yourself. There's ultimately a space daddy, who can tell you what, like. And I understand the idea of religion, like free will. I get all that, but like ultimately, the idea that a deity controls everything, that's scary to me.
yeah.
That's not a world I want to live in. You know what I mean? And that's what John Carpenter's proposing in this movie. He's like, yeah, you don't have control. You don't have autonomy. Sutter Cane is God. And he's written you into this page. And oh, by the way, he's going to write you out of this page because Styles Buddy in the movie doesn't exist.
No, I mean, it's all there, Damon. It's all
Hooked
there.
up. Cracked up. Patrick, that is our movie, In the Mouth of Madness, which, by the way, is currently streaming on Shudder. Oh, hey, Shudder.
I shudder.
So it is currently streaming. They've got that. They got Prince of Darkness. They got a couple Carpenter movies, and I know he just celebrated his birthday. So happy birthday to the master of horror himself, my favorite horror director, John Carpenter. Go check it out. It is so worth your time. We spoiled the shit out of this movie, so I'm assuming you've seen it or you just don't care about this point. But it is an incredible movie, and I think as a guy who's seen it 30 times and a guy who's just seen it once, it's a movie we would both recommend. Am I safe in saying that?
Oh, very safe in saying that. Yeah.
So check out In the Mouth of Madness. Obviously, as always, want to say a big thank you to everyone that tunes into our show. Make sure you check out our Patreon, patreon.com/RewindedLivingDead. You guys are getting this episode way early. We were recording this a couple days earlier than we normally do, so you guys are going to get this episode way ahead of time. So go over to patreon.com/RewindedLivingDead, and you can subscribe $5 a month to get early access to all of our episodes. We're about to drop a poll soon for our next Film Corps podcast. I have a feeling what's going to win that poll, but we'll see what happens. We got a couple suggestions in there that we're going to have pretty much fun with for February. So look out for that. You guys vote on that, and then we review whatever non-horror film you guys vote on. We've done Superman. We've done The Running Man. We've done Smashing Machine. We've done a few different movies. Kill Bill, The Whole Bloody Affair. So check that out as well. Make sure you check us on all your favorite podcast platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course, our YouTube channel. Just search Rewind of the Living Dead. You will find us over there. And you can also find us on our website, rewindofthelivingdead.com. We put up our episodes, of course. We also put up additional reviews, trailers, news, all kinds of cool shit. So rewindofthelivingdead.com is your one stop for all your horror needs. And obviously check us out on social media. We are on Twitter/X, we are on Facebook, and we are on Instagram. Once again, just search Rewind of the Living Dead. You will find us over there. You can also send us questions over there, comments. We love hearing from you guys, especially our reviews, questions you got about the reviews, your thoughts on these movies. We'd love to hear from you guys, so hit us up anytime on social media. You can also send us emails, rotlivingdead@gmail.com. That's livingdead@gmail.com. And you can also find us on our own personal social media channels. I am at Damon Martin, and you are?
At Director Patrick.
And a big thank you, as always, for everyone tuning into the show. We'll be back next week with another edition of Rewind of the Living Dead. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you then.
Peace.